Good afternoon, this is William, and welcome to the latest installment of I Was a Teenage Daydreamer, where I discuss mostly music, some literature, some film, and some random things that I enjoy, and hopefully you do as well. This is my first video in several days as I have been on vacation, and I was going to try to do a video while on vacation and decided I was too lazy. So I'm back and I have to start work again on Monday, but I will not let that deter me. And I decided that for this video, I would do all three of the elements that I speak about in my little intro: music, literature, and film. I got a lot of time to read, a lot of chance to catch up on some movies I've been wanting to watch, and also to work on music. Not only listen to music, but I took my ukulele with me, worked on a couple of songs for a project, and had a overall relaxing time. So diving right into it, when I talk about a film, I don't have a way to have a visual. I know people use Prezi and things like that, but I'm not going to get that technical. But there was a film called Errementari, or The Blacksmith and the Devil, from 2017 that was suggested on another channel that I watch called Cobweb's Channel. And sometimes when he is talking about a certain film and it's something that I would be interested in, if he's excited enough about it, I stop watching him and I put it on immediately and I watch it, and I've seen 3 or 4 that way. And Errementari, or The Blacksmith and the Devil, from 2017 is one of those. This film is in the Basque language, Basque country being an area in the Pyrenees Mountains in part of southern France and northern Spain, and it is an isolate language, which basically means it's not really related to any other languages, things like that. So just interesting history with stuff like that. But this film takes place sometime in the 1800s during one of the civil wars that was going on in Spain throughout history. So it's a period piece. And it is based on the Basque version of The Blacksmith and the Devil folktale, which is one that I'm somewhat familiar with, basically selling the soul to the devil for certain powers or outcomes or something like that, and then trying to beat the devil in the end. So it's a twist on that. And what I really loved about this film is, for one thing, not a lot of jump scares. If you saw my review on Jaws, you know that I'm not huge on jump scares. As much as I like horror, I like the mood and the vibe, and that is what this film brings a lot. The plot is pretty straightforward, not a lot of twists and turns, maybe 1 or 2 kind of surprises here and there. But overall, it's a pretty straightforward story. It has a nice steady pace. It doesn't get bogged down in this and that. And the action is, and I don't mean necessarily violence and things like that, but the plot flows along nicely. And it's a very dark film, but I won't say grim film. There are moments that are a little intense and a little maybe upsetting, but overall, it's a I don't even know what the rating was. Probably R, maybe for language or some of the themes or something like that. But I would say probably PG-13 would be fine. There's probably a lot worse things on TV these days than this film, what's going on. But again, the imagery is what I really loved. And it is very dark. It is there's definitely a mood of spookiness. There's an old forge out in the forest, and it's surrounded by a fence with spikes all over it and a sign that says "Get out of here." And inside that fence is the forge itself, which looks more like an old fort. And inside, it's very, very dark. It's just lit by fire and flame throughout. And one of the main characters is actually a demon who has been summoned to bring the blacksmith back to hell. And the makeup and costume on that is very practical. It is very, 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 very good. There wasn't a huge budget on this film. They used what they had on certain special effects on a scene towards the end of the movie that takes place in hell. That's really, really interesting and really creepy and very, very effective. But overall, this film is has a lot to do with childhood innocence. One of the main characters is a little girl who is an orphan, and she has a friendship or develops a friendship with the blacksmith. Everyone's afraid of the blacksmith because it's said that he murdered his wife and he kidnaps children and he sold his soul to the devil and blah, 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 blah. And he is a very large, intimidating dude with a big beard. And again, it's very dark, so you don't get a good look at him and things like that. But everyone lives in fear of the monster in the woods, if you will. So it's very much mystery or monster in the woods type story. It is a childhood innocent story, maybe a little bit of a coming of age story, definitely a revenge story from the viewpoint of the blacksmith. But also, there's a theme of things aren't always what they appear to be, and even the demon that's in the film has some what you would call redeeming qualities, keeping one's word, doing the right thing, stuff like that. And it also touches lightly on religious fanaticism of the time, superstition, things like that. It has definitely got a supernatural element to it. So, and it is definitely a demon slash devil slash horror, folk horror movie. But if you like something that's dark in atmosphere and in mood, but light as far as excuse me, overall intensity and scare tactics and things like that, this is a good just sit down, have on type movie. You can watch it with the kids. I think the language is there, but it's not too bad. No other types of content or anything to worry about. So, moving on from there, like I said, I did a lot of reading, and I read several books at one time. I read a lot of short stories, just because that's usually what I have time for, and not a lot of novels. But I did read this novel, The Owl Service by Alan Garner, who is an English author. and I came across him a couple of months ago on YouTube, and there's a whole bunch of videos of old 70s, 80s British horror from the BBC and things like that, and I was watching those. But one was a little clip about Alan Garner, and I was like, who is this guy? And blah, blah, blah. You start going down the rabbit hole. And this is the series that or the novel that he's most known for, with a couple of other things. And it is a young adult novel, but it's a little bit of a difficult read because it takes place in the Welsh countryside, and it is actually it is based on the Blodeuwedd Welsh myth. Blodeuwedd is a flower face, or a woman of flowers. It's part of Welsh mythology, which I'm not really familiar with. I've heard of it. I know the name, and it does delve into that some here. So some of the language is a bit challenging, not because it's in Welsh, but just because of the idioms and the mannerisms and things like that, especially one character that you're not really sure. And he jumps around a lot, which I think was an interesting way to move the story along. Not a lot of repeat of he said, she said, and things like that. Things going on at the same time in this chapter, and then you see what was happening at that time in the next chapter and things like that. But it's a low fantasy novel, meaning that it takes place in the real world, but there is a supernatural element in there as well. And sometimes it's rather vague on if it's supernatural or if it's just natural coincidences happening. But at the end of it all, I pretty much I determined that it was real supernatural things going on. That the Blodeuwedd was a real entity that was doing certain things. But the three main characters are three children. Gwen, who is the son of a woman who was hired to keep house for a wealthy family who is on vacation. And then two children come with that family, Roger and Allison. And this is a blended family. It's Roger's father and Allison's mother. And Allison's mother, Mummy, is talked about a lot, but you actually never see her. But she does run things just because we don't want to upset Mummy. So even though she's never on screen, if you will, she is a very prominent force, as is Nancy. So this is a definitely a coming of age type novel, but it's also about accepting one's heritage. And Gwen is very much does not want to accept part of his Welsh ancestry, and his mother Nancy struggles with that as well. And there's some entanglement amongst the family. And again, I had to read and reread certain things. I actually had to read some notes on it just to follow exactly what was going on here a couple of times. But it's also a class struggle novel, an us against them, if you will, and the lower classes versus the upper classes, and how neither one of them really understands the other, and there's resentment on both sides. There's also a BBC, I believe, 8-part adaptation that's also on YouTube, which I'm going to eventually watch, and I might even talk about here. And that might help smooth out some of the edges. But I found this a very interesting read. And one thing that I will say is the owl service I had Harry Potter on the brain, and I thought, oh, this must be owls delivering things or bringing things or whatever. In this case, a service is like a table service, like plates and dishes and things like that. And there's an owl pattern design along the edges of it. So that's where the owl service comes from. So anyway, The Owl Service by Alan Garner, 1967. I picked this up on eBay very inexpensively, and you should go check it out. So musically, it is, I am in Florida. I stayed in Florida for my staycation. It wasn't really a staycation, but I was still in Florida. And this was the soundtrack in the car when I would go places. Samhain III, Samhain. I know that's the real pronunciation of it. I've heard Glenn Danzig say Samhain. I don't know. I don't know what's correct. Anyway, November Coming Fire from 1986, released on his Plan 9 label. And this is their second album, I believe third release. Unholy Passion EP came before this, right? Anyway, so Samhain is, of course, Glenn Danzig's band after Misfits broke up. Misfits being one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. I mean, can't you tell by looking at me in my white shirt with my turkey logo and stuff like that? But I love that band, and I love this band as well. And it's an interesting transition on his way to Danzig, the band. And this is actually, even though there is one final Samhain album, Final Descent, which is kind of a hodgepodge of things, this was the last album before the band signed to Def Jam Records and became Danzig, and he continued on basically as a blues, hard rock / metal. He became more metal as he went along. But this album is a nice bridge between Misfits, punk, quirky 50s, amped up 50s, movie themed, horror themed songs, and this is just more dark imagery. All the kitsch of the I Turned Into a Zombie, Astro Zombies, Horror Hotel, all the things based on 1950s and 60s sci-fi and horror, that's all gone. This is all just dark stuff, but it's really, really, really good, and it's really catchy. I mean, you don't really like to think of your dark music as being catchy, but it is. It's high energy. It's a lot of fun, and it's very emotive to me in a lot of ways. I mean, In My Grip, great. Mother of Mercy, fantastic. To Walk the Night, moody and brooding. Let the Day Begin, November's Fire, Human Pony Girl is a little bit disturbing. The only minor misstep is the reworking of Halloween 2, which is a Misfit song. I think as much as I love Halloween 1, definitely a top 5, if not 3 Misfit song, with We Bite being number 1 for me, and probably Hybrid Moments being number 2. Halloween's probably number 3. Uh, Halloween 2 is kind of just, I see what they were doing, kind of like what they did with Blood Feast on Earth AD. I don't know why they've redone it here. It's pretty similar to the original version, and it's just kind of goofy. I was texting my friend John, he's just yelling out scary sounding words, and then they sing the Halloween chorus, but it's ultimately it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't blemish the album. It's just kind of like, I don't know why you did that. You already had a full album. You didn't need to do this. So I still give this a full 5 out of 5 stars, because eggshells in the omelet don't ruin the omelet. So anyway, that was my musical theme, because it was hot out there. November coming fire. We're coming into November. We're coming into the dark season, which is my favorite time of year. So anyway, so that was my soundtrack, my reading, and my visual, well, of many things during my vacation this week. If you're familiar with that novel or that film or this album or anything similar related, or if you've just come back from vacation or blah blah, let me know what you're listening to or watching or reading. Click like and subscribe if you so desire, but most importantly, keep doing what you love. Thanks.